Welcome to Built Not Burnt Out. I'm your host, Melissa Petersen, a mom of 10, attorney, health coach, and a group fitness instructor. Each week, we bring you conversations to help you build better health, create lasting habits, and become the healthiest version of yourself. So today's guest is Dave Mack, a well-known voice in the carnivore community. Through his YouTube channel and podcast, he's sharing his own carnivore journey and educating people by interviewing many of the leading voices in metabolic health. A few weeks ago, I had the privilege of being his guest, and today we're flipping the script. Dave is joining me on Built Not Burnt Out to share more about his own carnivore journey and the work he's doing to educate and inspire others. Dave, welcome to Built Not Burnt Out.
Thanks for having me on, Melissa. Really appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. I feel very privileged. So I thought we could just start with just you talking about like how did this all start?
Sure. So this all started for me in June 2022. Um, I was doing keto to try and get my prediabetes under control and also control an alcohol problem. And in doing keto, I realized that I wasn't having the best kind of reaction to the veggies I was eating that I would like. And that reaction involved being in the bathroom a lot. And so I'm searching around trying to find out what's happening. I'd initially thought, well, maybe it's because I'm eating all this meat. And then as time went on, thought it was maybe the vegetables. And that was confirmed when I found some videos by Dr. Ken Berry, who had talked about how particular vegetables are gut irritants. And he singled out the vegetables I was eating. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, he's talking about doing this meat only thing. And I'm not married to the vegetables, and I'm already doing keto, so maybe I could try just knocking out the veggies and see what happens. So I gave up the vegetables, and the rest is history. I've been carnivore ever since. So it's been about 4 years now. And about 4 months into my carnivore journey, I was like, this is amazing. I feel better than I ever have in my life. Like, I feel clear, I feel happy, I feel energetic. A lot of the kind of aging problems I'd been experiencing had gone away. And so I thought, I've got to talk about this. And so I started a channel to kind of add my voice into the other carnivores that were out there. And I kind of thought at the time, I'm going to get like maybe 10 views on my videos, and most of those people will be pity views from family or friends. Um, and it just took off. And the thing that made me continue posting was I was getting all these comments on my videos like, that happened to me too. This change happened to me as well. And I thought, okay, well, I'm getting so much positive feedback here. I need to keep talking about it. And so I did. And yeah, more than 1,800 interviews later, it's pretty much 4 years in.
Wow, 1,800 interviews.
Yeah.
So how many people do you interview per week approximately?
Um, 15 to 20 people a week usually. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. So what do you feel are the most interesting topics that you've covered with people?
So the thing that I think one of the most important takeaways after 3.5, 4 years of doing this that I've found is that everyone moves in the same direction. No one's coming on and saying, yeah, I tried carnivore, but after 2 months, I was putting on more weight, and I was having more joint pain and all this kind of thing. Everyone goes in the same direction. They might not get weight loss immediately, but basically all their metabolic issues start moving in a positive direction, whether that's arthritis, whether that's back pain, whether that's their type 2 diabetes, all these things, they start reversing. And the most surprising thing for me in all of this has been seeing people who have had MS start to improve their symptoms and in many cases reverse the MS completely. And for me, that was such a surprise because for MS had always been this thing to me that people get and then that's it. You know, they get MS and things never get better. Um, but just understanding that, MS can be managed, perhaps reversed with eating a nutritionally complete diet where we're not focused on variety and entertainment, has been a massive surprise for me.
Wow, that is fascinating. I haven't done much research on MS. Have you seen any other things like such as autoimmune? What's the consensus you've seen with your interviews on autoimmune disease?
So yeah, I mean, pretty much as people come in with autoimmune conditions and they're talking about them, most people are either putting them into remission or the things are getting better. Um, and some things because there've been long-term exposure issues, like for example, exposure to mold and things like that over a long period of time. I think people are not necessarily I want to say curing everything, but they are improving their life. They are getting better. They are minimizing the symptoms they're experiencing. And it makes sense when you think if we're eating the way that our body is most well fed and getting the nutrients it needs, it makes sense that it's either clearing up or helping to minimize the autoimmune symptoms. Um, so yeah, I feel like there's very few people that are coming. Well, I haven't experienced any interviews where people are saying, "Well, this is just not been good for me." You know, if it
Right.
doesn't clear everything, it certainly puts people on the right track where they can manage their symptoms better.
Yes. Yes. So what about you? You said you were trying to help with some pre-diabetes and alcohol
Mm.
addiction. So what was your journey like? What were your results?
So for me, the pre-diabetes has gone away. And that happened very quickly. The other thing was the alcohol, and surprisingly, it was easy once I gave myself the self-control of carnivore. The alcohol was very easy to give up. And that was kind of why I went back to keto in the first place, because I knew whenever I minimized the amount of carbohydrate I was eating, that would improve my self-control. And it worked for me. I haven't had a drink for over 4 years now. And that's massive for me because any time that I would have not had anything to do, I would have had a drink in my hand. And as soon as I had a drink in my hand, it was only a matter of time until I had all the drinks in my hand. And the worst thing about alcohol is that the more you drink it, the more that everything seems to be a good idea. And, so I end up drinking till, the early hours of the morning and all sorts of things. So yeah, that's gone. Self-control's back. I can sit with people drinking alcohol now and not feel anything about it. I can just enjoy the socialization. But the things that I didn't expect to improve were perhaps in some ways bigger. So I had arthritis in my left knee that was becoming really, really painful, really difficult to move around. I was getting regular steroid injections, was going for weekly massage therapies and this kind of thing. And after a couple of months, it just vanished. And I didn't even, it wasn't something I even noticed improving. It was just one day I had to run across the road because the traffic light was changing. And it was the situation where I had no option but to move quickly. And at that moment, because it had been so painful, as I started to run, my brain sent me this kind of signal that was like, don't run, it's going to hurt. But I had to just continue with it. And I realized it it's not hurting anymore. And as I got across the road, I continued running. And it was one of those moments where you think you feel better, but you're just waiting for the pain to come back. So it's like, I'm going to keep running. It's like you stand up, and when you stand up, your back doesn't hurt for the first time in a long time. And it's like, I've just got to keep trying to stand up because I'm sure this is going to come back at some point, and it never did. So that was massive. The other thing that improved is um, when I was 17, I had a stroke. And from after I had that stroke, I've had symptoms on my right side. For example, I limp on my right side. My right hand is weaker. My reaction times on my right side are slower, that kind of thing. And that's just something I've put up with for 30 years, or 20 odd years at that time. And so I'll always have those deficits or a deficit on my right side. But things started to improve. My balance started to get a little bit better. Strength started to get a bit better. I wasn't limping as much. And, the fact that I wasn't limping as much on my right side and I now didn't have the problem with the pain on my left knee, everything got better. And yeah, just feel healthier, feel stronger, and yet never will never go back.
I thought it was interesting what you said about like the alcohol and that, now you don't even feel triggered by the alcohol. And I also think that it's interesting because, there's a lot of people who are trying to quit drinking. And I noticed before I became a carnivore myself that when I was eating fruit, it would make me want to I would crave sugar. And so I knew that I needed to get rid of fruit out of my diet before I went carnivore. And so I really thought that was interesting, and it makes a lot of sense to me that alcohol is similar to that, like your sugar cravings.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's almost like there's a cascade in your body. You start with one innocuous seeming carbohydrate, and then it just gets, then you go to the next thing and the next thing. It just snowballs, and before long, you're eating Krispy Kreme donuts and drinking wine or something,
Yes. Yes, I noticed that myself whenever I was eating clean, and then pretty soon I'm eating like nuts mixed with dark chocolate, and then pretty soon it's like chocolate, and then it's just a whole bunch of chocolate cereal and milk, and just
Yeah.
horrible, horrible food.
So, and the idea of the healthy kind of foods, right? That's one of the most toxic things we've been educated with, like for example, oats are healthy for us, right?
Right.
Like if I used to eat a bowl of oats for breakfast, the only thing that I would be feeling after I finished that bowl of oats would be, where's the next bowl of oats? So like I'm eating
Yes.
buckets of these oats
Yes.
daily, and I mean to be honest, buckets of oats. That's the breakfast of the farmyard, not humans, you know.
100%. I mean, my best friend, she gets a cow from a farmer and it's grass fed, but then they grain finish it to fatten it up with oats. So, I mean, I guess if, we want to be fat, we should eat oats. And the same thing goes for a lot of other food.
Right. Yeah, I saw a meme the other day on Facebook. It's like the world's biggest psyop has been convincing us that the foods they use to fatten animals are the healthy ones that are going to make us thin.
Right, right. And those are the ones that were at the former bottom of our food pyramid, to eat the most here in the United States. So it's crazy, and it's good that they're finally bringing things in a better direction there.
Yeah. I mean, and speaking of the food pyramid, prior to this kind of turning upside down of the food pyramid, the my understanding is the My Plate one that they had.
Yes.
One of the kind of bad things about that one was I think they even kind of took the idea of meat out of there, instead changed it to just get some protein, like which, their idea of protein could be, ha eat some nuts or something like that, So they're even trying at that point they were even trying to, minimize meat more than it had been.
Oh yeah, I knew I had a friend who was a vegan and she told me that her doctor advised her to start eating chicken while she was going through menopause because she was having very terrible symptoms. And I think that, just having the carbs like exacerbates those kinds of symptoms.
Mm. And when you think about that, it's really quite dystopian in a way that the food industry, the wellness industry, the pharmaceutical industry have basically been able to manufacture markets really just by kind of directing us 180 degrees away from how we should be eating.
Yes, yes, I know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but sometimes I think, well, if we have big food making us sick with processed food and sugar, and then we have big pharma to treat like symptoms, but not actually the root cause, we're never going to get better, but we're going to spend a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's sad. And kind of going with like when I was talking about like the menopause stuff, have you had many people on to talk about like say maybe PCOS, about like fertility issues with women? Have you had women talk about that?
Yeah, I've had lots of women on that have talked about PCOS is gone, endometriosis is gone, cycles have regulated again. Um, it's quite again, it's just this amazing thing when you think about it. Saturated fat's been demonized for so long, and women who suffer so much from irregular cycle, pains, all of this kind of thing, the more saturated fat they eat, the better they do. The more everything normalizes.
Yes, yes. And I think that's probably why in, menopause that it gives you the similar thing. I feel like it also reverses people's age, like we blame things on aging, but really it's on our food that's causing all of these diseases. It's causing us to seem older than what we are. And it makes us infertile. I
Mm.
think also too, like I don't know, like I'm sure you've heard of Dr. Sean O'Mara and he
Yeah.
talks a lot about like erectile dysfunction and things like that in men. Have you run across people who've talked about like men's issues and those getting better with carnivore?
I have, but that's maybe I've think I've discovered that less, or I've had less people talk about that than I have with the women's issues. But yeah, I mean the the fact that a lot of this stuff is just hormone related or vascular related. I mean, carnivore's perfect for this stuff. But one of the, certainly related to vascular issues, one of the things that, again, we've allowed ourselves to be educated into is that saturated fat's going to block your arteries. Saturated fat's going to stop the blood flow, right? Um, and it makes sense that we've allowed ourselves to be educated this way because certainly when I was growing up, and we still cooked with like lard and butter and things like that when I was a kid. One of the things your your parents would always say to you is don't pour that down the sink because it's going to block the sink, right? And so you get used to, you see the lard or whatever it is solidify in room temperature, and you go, well, if it does that to the pipes, of course it's going to do it to my pipes as well, right? So you
Right.
kind of, when you hear people saying it's going to block your arteries, you go, of course, because it blocks the drain pipe. But, that's not what happens. But it's very simple for us to understand these kind of things as we're watching the news or we're watching a doctor talk about this on some documentary or whatever, right?
Right. It's actually the processed food and sugar that are destroying our arteries. And
Mm,
then our body is trying to repair itself with the cholesterol and things like that that we need. Our body doesn't get rid of cholesterol, we need it.
right,
And
right.
and our brains for sure need it.
Mm.
And so all
Yeah.
that was just all of that I think is going to most doctors don't worry about cholesterol anymore that I've run into. My MD wasn't worried about it. My naturopath wasn't worried about it. I don't really
Mm,
have that high of cholesterol anyway, but but it does definitely increase your HDL. And I know like my HDL numbers are awesome, and my doctor even said that he was pretty impressed with one of my results. So, it's interesting how, they tell you these things and it's like everything they've told you. I think about like the low fat, like don't eat fat from the 80s, and I think
mm.
about like the sugar free, you're eating fat free, sugar free this, fat free, sugar free that, and just how destructive that was in our health.
Yeah. And look, I think one of the other things is, there's all this talk about the sugar free is better and all this kind of thing. The the biggest issue that people have, I think, is they don't understand that basically all carbohydrates are going to become sugar at one point or another, right? So if you're eating something that's low fat, they've got to be making the taste up somewhere, right? So they're putting some kind of carbohydrate in there. So even if it's like sugar free, what's in there is going to become sugar at some point, you know?
Right.
And but you know, on the sugar front, when we think about um, one of the biggest learnings for me, and I think this is so important for people to understand, is um, we have spent our entire lives frustrated, looking at ourselves in the mirror, standing on the scales and thinking, I'm not losing weight. I don't lose weight. What's going on? No matter what we do, like you'd be cutting calories down to some ridiculous level, calories down to some ridiculous level, and thinking, I'm starving myself. I'm working so hard and I still can't lose weight. And then realizing that, our insulin's chronically elevated. And the biggest learning for me was understanding that when your insulin's elevated, you're not going to lose weight because insulin's a fat storage hormone. And realizing that, and again, we've been educated in the completely wrong direction. Um, yeah, I think that's one of the most important things for people to understand is, you can eat the mashed potatoes, you can eat the bread, whatever. It doesn't matter how much you restrict it. If you're still eating it, your insulin's going to be going up and you're not going to lose weight.
Yeah. And I also think too, with like sweeteners, artificial sweeteners, things like that. I mean, I used to a long, long time ago, chronically drink diet soda. And I remember I would be doing work and I'd be standing there like just trying to assist my spouse and I would need to sit down. And, just standing there, like I couldn't just stand there. And I remember when I got rid of the diet soda, which was like, I don't know, probably 15 years ago, that I all of a sudden didn't have that happen anymore. I mean, it's just amazing how this stuff is just poisoning us. And
Mm.
people they think they're doing better drinking artificial sweeteners or eating artificial sweeteners, but I mean, those also can cause your insulin to rise in some people.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard of like the just the taste can make because it's a sweet taste, it can make your body kind of raise insulin in the expectation, sugar incoming, we need to be ready to get the get this substance packed away or get it out of here as quickly as possible. Um, which is also an interesting thing where you'll hear nutritionists, dietitians, doctors say, well, you have to eat carbohydrate because glucose is the fuel your body runs on. It's the primary fuel your body runs on because that's the thing that gets burned first, right? But if that is actually an argument, then what they have to do is step back and go, well, that line of argumentation actually means that alcohol is the primary the primary fuel for your body because if you were to have alcohol, glucose, saturated fat, for example, all at the same time, your body's going to prioritize burning, getting rid of the alcohol first, right?
Right, right.
Before it does anything with glucose, right? So that would actually start to make you, if you think about the alcohol example, then you would start to think, well, maybe your body thinks excess glucose is a toxin, and therefore it knows damage is going to be caused by this excess glucose. So it's doing its best to get that out of your bloodstream as quickly as possible.
100%. And I think sometimes too, I've been talking and working with people and trying to lower their carbohydrate intake, even if they don't want to be carnivore. But I think sometimes I hear people complain, well, I'm tired. I need sugar. And I think that's just that your body needs to learn how to use ketones, from and convert to fat. I mean, when you're constantly giving it carbohydrates all day long, it's never going to burn the fat.
Yeah. You're just up and down all day, right? Like
Right.
insulin spikes, and then drops, you're tired again, and it's up and down and up and down and up and down, and it's like, oh, I feel tired, I need to eat something. Then it's back up again, drops, and yeah, you're on this cycle. But once you get fat adapted, it's like this.
Right.
And I mean, you can be like, if there is someone that doesn't want to completely give up carbs, I mean, you can still have that level calm feeling by, going keto, going low carb, something like that. It's just it's much more consistent when you're carnivore because, there's just nothing spiking at all.
100%. I mean, I recently participated in the High Rocks competition. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's fairly lengthy. It involves running it involves running 8,000 meters and a bunch of like physical challenges in the middle. Like there's eight of them. And I mean, I did that and I did it without using carbohydrates the whole
Mm,
time. And I had very good energy. I took a few electrolytes, but with no sugar, but in my water, but like that's all I did the whole competition on. I
mm,
didn't need Gatorade, I didn't need, goo packs or anything like that. I did it just on my own fat burning.
yeah. Yeah, I think again that's this is also part of the kind of miseducation that we've had is that we need to refuel with carbohydrates, you need to be carb loading, all this kind of thing. I've interviewed people who do 5Ks, 10Ks, ultra marathons fasted, and they are not carb loading at all. They're r- just totally fat adapted.
That makes sense to me. I've done some longer fasts, and I always get more energy when I'm fasted. In fact, so much energy sometimes that I have a hard time sleeping at night, some nights, depending on how long I'm fasted. So that
Mm,
makes a lot of sense to
yeah.
do that. Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Have you talked to people about doing those kinds of, physical events with no carbs?
Yeah. And it's bodybuilding as well, like people in the gym and doing so well, building muscle, packing on muscle, and like other people around them can't understand how they're doing so well because they're not having the traditional kind of chicken breast, broccoli and rice kind of constant eating.
Have you talked with anybody about that has come on with cancer?
Um, yes, I have.
And what happens with cancer and carnivore?
So I've had people on who have got rid of particular cancers, but I mean, it's not I wouldn't necessarily be able to say, oh, this is something that definitely can cure it or something like that or reverse it but there have been people come on, do carnivore, and the cancer just goes away. Like for example, PET scans show no evidence of disease. That's what they say about cancer is NED, no evidence of disease. So I've had quite a few people like that.
And so maybe it's not just because of carnivore, but that maybe that could have been help.
Yeah, yeah, obviously, yeah, they might just be something that did go away, but given that um, with cancer, it feeds on glucose. Um, Taking that out of your diet completely is certainly a way of helping to starve it of its fuel source. And the interesting thing is, again, throughout our lives, we don't think of, glucose as being a fuel source for cancer. We just think it's this terrible thing that happens. Um, and once it happens, you've got to go through all these extreme therapies like radiation and chemo and that kind of thing. Um, but when you look at how they identify cancer on a scan, like when you do a PET scan, you have to drink glucose first, and then the cancer cells light up on the PET scan. It's like, well, if that's the case, why don't we
Right.
stop eating the glucose?
Right. 100%. I've had lots of luck myself with the carnivore. So what do you feel is like the most reported successes with carnivore of the people that you've interviewed?
Well, it would have to be joint pain or type 2 diabetes reversal. Um, people that have got A1Cs of, in the teens coming and talking about how their A1C is now 4.8 or something, how they're feeling better than they ever have before. Their type 2 diabetes is completely in remission, but still, the doctor is either just saying, well, keep doing what you're doing. I don't know what it is, but keep doing what you're doing. Or the doctor is going, yeah, I know you feel better, but look at your cholesterol. So it's type 2 diabetes or it's joint pain, typically, are the kind of most common things you'll hear.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Well, is there any other thing that you think is significant that I haven't really touched on?
Um, I think for anyone watching that hasn't tried it, I think the most important thing is to just give it a go. And you might not like the idea now of eating an only animal products diet, but that's because you're currently coming from a diet where food is more about entertainment and filling you than it is about nutrition and satiation. So, what happens is after you've been on carnivore for a significant period of time, let's say 30 to 60 days, your perspective on what food is for completely changes. So you go from feeling like I need to be entertained, I need food to fill an emotional hole, I need food to, satisfy a habit that I've got. It completely changes. Your feeling about food suddenly goes to it's about entertainment to it's something functional, something that's going to help me just get through my day better and perform better. And you also then have a lot more free time and a lot more headspace to be able to do better throughout the day, whether that's be more productive or more emotionally intelligent or whatever it happens to be.
Have people talked about like whether they went carnivore cold turkey versus like going slow at it? And if they did, what would be, do you think, or what's reported to be better to get rid of those sugar cravings?
So it tends to be 50-50. Um, and it tends to be more about personality than anything else. So you've got people who are the all or nothing type of person, and you've got people who are moderators naturally, So you've got people that can go, I'll have one cigarette and I won't, I can put them away and I won't have another cigarette for 6 months or something like that, right? So you've got those moderator types, and then you've got the person that once I light a cigarette, I'm going to be smoking the whole packet and then going and buying another packet. Um, so it's about 50-50. And I'm one of those all or nothing people, right? So I've just got to rip, no matter what it is that I do, I've got to rip the band-aid off. And yeah, so I think it's really based on your personality, how you do it. I think the all or nothing type of person, they're going to probably see some results faster, and probably they are going to maybe get to a point where they're feeling better and really noticing the effects of carnivore a little bit quicker, but they're also probably going to have a tougher time initially. Like, because if you go from drinking alcohol, from eating all the ice cream that you want, from eating cereal for breakfast and Pop-Tarts and all this kind of thing, to suddenly going, I'm only eating ruminant meat and salt, your body's going to have probably some issues, especially like in the bathroom. So yeah, I would say it's probably down to your personality. So I don't think there's necessarily a right way of doing it. You've got to do whatever works for you, but probably in the short term, when you're first getting acclimatized, transitioning in is going to be maybe an easier way of going about it.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. I agree with like that with the personality. I also was an all or nothing sort of person, just went all in. But I think some people just need to ease right into that.
Right.
Uh, Is there anything else that, with all of your interviews that stands out for you?
If you basically overall, if you want to feel better, you need to eat natural food and you need to eat whole foods that have not been sprayed with lots of chemicals. You need to get it as natural as possible. And the best way of doing that is eating a diet which is predominantly animal products. If you're going to eat stuff that is manufactured, that's got a lot of ingredients in it that you can't pronounce, and you're focused on things like calories rather than just eating something that's natural, then you're not going to feel as good as you could. So, yeah, everyone should give it a try.
Awesome. Well, Dave, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your journey and your stories of other people with us. And I really appreciate you and taking the time to be on the show today and for everything that you're doing to educate people through your podcast and your YouTube channel. If you'd like to learn more about Dave or follow his work, be sure to check out his podcast and his YouTube channel, and I'll include all of his links in the show notes. And thank you today for listening to Built Not Burnt Out. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please take a second to like, follow, or subscribe. And also for Dave's show, so that you don't miss future conversations. It also helps us reach more people who are looking to build healthier lives. And if this episode encouraged you, share it with a friend or family member who would enjoy it. And until next time, keep building your health, your habits, and your future, one choice at a time.